1 minute late. You know the joke of the Yeki. Was it the Yeki and Hasidic wedding?
Yeah.
Exactly 2 hours late.
And you heard the one about the guy who comes home and his Yeki wife says to him, "Where were you?" He said, "Oh, we started saying Moshe Baruch."
That's it. Why are you 2 seconds late? And what was the other one? Does the minyan start now? No, now. You can relate to that one, Katie is watching, and Zahava, and my mother, who's now in South Africa on safari. I sent her a video of a hippopotamus chasing a jeep, and that's how I imagine safari to be. And David and Avital and everyone else who watches, Shalom Aleichem to you. So, we're continuing where we left off, and today we're going to finish this lesson one way or another. We're going to finish it officially, and then we're going to go into the second part of it, and with that, wherever we reach tonight will be the end of this lesson for us this time around. So we're learning from lesson Ayin Daled, and we've been learning about why Hashem sends us troubles and afflictions, and why it seems like it's Hashem distancing us from Him. And he talks about Yaakov and Avraham. Yaakov is connected to Gvura, stringency, and Avraham is connected to Chesed, which is kindness. And he says that kindness gave birth to stringency. That Avraham holidit Yitzchak, meaning that when you have difficult things that happen to you, it seems like they're difficult things, but really they're coming from a source of chesed, of kindness. And the example that I give, because I have kids, and many of them, or all of them, have had cavities, is when they don't want to brush their teeth, and you force them to brush their teeth, or you try to stop them from eating so much sugar, and they think you're the coolest person in the world. And then at some point, they realize that they have to take care of their teeth, and they might look back and say, "Oh, now I understood why you stood on top of me and tried to brush my teeth." So Hashem essentially does the same thing. He says the problem is that the yisurim, the afflictions that we have, come from mochim de katnut. It comes from a small-minded consciousness, and so many times we're just focused on the problem that we have at that moment, and we're not able to see the bigger picture that Hashem is actually trying to bring us closer through distancing us. Because I don't know how it is for women, but for men, when I was younger and I was dating, especially in high school, there would be some beautiful woman and I'd ask her out and she'd say flat out no, then I just wanted to date her even more. Now you would think if she says no, the answer is no, but when she says no, now I want it even more. or works with many things, I wanted this job, or I wanted this thing, and I couldn't get it, so now I want it even more. So that's what Hashem is doing. Hashem is pushing us away so that we'll want to come closer even more. The problem is that many times we can forget about it because it didn't come with that message attached. Hashem sends us this problem, that problem, this problem, that problem, and we don't get the second message that says, by the way, this is to bring you closer. So that's a summary of the lesson, and I'm just going to read the last section of the lesson, and then there's a whole addition here, which, like I said, whatever we get through tonight, we're going to get through, and that's going to be the end of what we learn in this lesson for this time around, because it's Reb Nassim who comes back to the lesson, and he says, well, this lesson was a lesson that wasn't given over directly from Rabbi Nachman, Shalom Aleichem Techaya. It was given to him by the Hasidim that heard the lesson from Rabbi Nachman, and they kind of made a mess of it. That's what he says in the second part. He says, now I'm going to make sense of it. But let's read the end of it before we get there. So we're now on Hey. V'kol ha'avodot shetzarich ha'adam la'avod et ha'borei, all of the types of service that a person has to do in order to serve Hashem, hu rak sheyitgale kvodo shel Hashem yitbarach ba'olam al yedei avodato she'ovedoto. So what it says, what is all this that we have to do? What is all this work that we're doing in order to la'avod et Hashem, to serve Hashem, to come close to Hashem? It's to reveal Hashem's kavod. We've talked about the word kavod many times. It means honor, glory, but really what it means is to reveal Hashem's light in this world. Meaning, if we put it all together, when a person goes through their troubles and afflictions, and they strengthen themselves, knowing that it's coming from Hashem who wants to bring us closer, that will reveal more of Hashem's light in this world. Because the world is actually filled with Hashem's light, we just don't always see it. But when we go through a challenge and we overcome the challenge through emunah and through simcha, then we reveal Hashem's light in the world. That's the meaning of what we just read now. V'kol ha'avodot shetzarich ha'adam la'avod et haborei hu rak sheyitgale kvodo. Ve'akavod mitgale al yedei chokhmah. And how is Hashem's light revealed? Through wisdom. Ki chokhmah nikra kavod, because wisdom is called kavod. Kmo shekatuv, as is written, he's going to give us a text proof. Im avani ayeh kavodi. If I am the father, then where is my honor? V'lamadnu mikan, and we learned from this, kavod mitgale al yedei b'chinat av. We learned from this that honor is revealed through the aspect of the father. Okay, I'm just going to skip over parts of this here, because I want to get to the second part. So I'm going to go to the end here where it says, V'zeh perush hapasuk. And this is the meaning of the verse that we opened with. Ruma al hashamayim elokim. Hashem exalts himself over the heavens. Shehu ma'aleh b'chinat nefesh. When a person raises up the aspect of nefesh, of the soul, shehi b'chinat elokim, which is connected to the name of Hashem, that is Elokim. And Elokim is connected to Din Kadosh, holy judgment, which is Yisurim Shel Ahava, which is afflictions of love. The B'chinat Yaakov Shehu Shamayim. So you're taking the afflictions of love, which stem from a source of kindness, and you're elevating them up to Yaakov, which is Shamayim, which is heaven. The B'chinat Chokhmah Shesham Shorosh HaNefesh, which is the wisdom, which is, where is the soul? The soul is not in the heart, the soul is in the mind. And when you raise up your afflictions, then you bring it back to its source, which is the place of Chokhmah, which is the place of wisdom, meaning that you need wisdom, you need an intellectual seeing of what's going on in your life in order to elevate the troubles and afflictions that come your way. And without that, they're just troubles and afflictions. Az yesh refuah nefesh umitkayem siyum pasuk, and then there's a healing for the soul, and then we're able to keep the last part of the verse, Al kol haaretz kvodecha. The whole earth is filled with your glory or your light. Shenitgale kvodo shel Hashem yitbarach, that Hashem's light is revealed into the world. How is Hashem's light revealed into the world? when you use your chokhmah, when you use your wisdom, your intellect, to realize that the troubles and afflictions that are coming to you as a type of kindness from Hashem in order to bring you closer to Hashem. And then when you start to live that, you are essentially the light of Hashem being revealed in the world through your going through that experience. Ki hanefesh ola l'shorsha, and that's how the soul is elevated to its root. Ki yechola la'asot avodata b'shleimut, because then the soul can do its service of Hashem in a complete way. Because if a person is just living their lives and they're not connected to Torah and mitzvot, and they don't know these ideas from Chassidus that the troubles and afflictions that come your way are in order to bring you closer and to bring you to a higher place spiritually, then you're not serving Hashem in a complete way. You're only serving Hashem in a halfway. V'ikar tachlit u'shlemut avodah hu, should be he, and the main and the ultimate purpose and the complete way of serving Hashem is shemitgale kavod Hashem yitbarach ba'olam. When you reveal Hashem's light in the world, ki kol ha'olam nivra lichvodo yitbarach, because the whole world was created for Hashem's glory, meaning the whole world was created in order to reveal Hashem in the world. So I keep thinking back to Liraz, who I mentioned last week, and I'm in the group for updates on him. So every week or so they send out a video, and you see a guy who doesn't have his legs. And I kind of go through this in my own head, that the challenge for him, and I think he's really the perfect person for this, is to be an inspiration for people. I'm not putting any expectations on him. I'm not saying you need to be an inspiration for people. I'm saying that I believe he's going to be an inspiration for people. Because I believe that he's a strong person, and he will turn this very difficult thing into something that will bring him to a higher place that he actually couldn't have been brought to before. I really believe in him and his ability to do that. B'ezrat Hashem, he'll do that. There are other people that have done that. There was this guy, I don't even remember how I came across him, some American soldier whose legs were also amputated after being in Iraq or Afghanistan. And there was a quote from him. So people say to him, they look down to him in his wheelchair, and he doesn't have legs, and they say to him, how can you be so happy when you don't have legs? And he looks up at them, standing on their legs, and say, how can you not be happy when you have your legs? And that little thing that he said is actually so brilliant. Now, it can only come from a person who didn't have legs, that he could say something like that and give the perspective to somebody that does have legs to really appreciate what they had. That, in essence, summarizes what Rabbi Nachman is trying to say. Now, he also breaks it down to the little things that we have in life. You don't have enough money to pay your bills, or you have some health issue, or you have this issue, or whatever it is. So all of these things, we have to deal with them as they come, and they're ultimately there to bring us closer to Hashem. Now, I'm just going to read for the next 20 minutes or so Reb Nassan's review of the lesson and trying to make the lesson clearer, even though he goes on for many, many pages here. And I think he does himself a little bit of an injustice because, and I can guess that Reb Nassan just didn't want to leave out any details. Like, it must have been very hard to say, okay, now that I gave over this lesson that the Hasidim gave over, and they're a little messy, yeah, you're going to see that's what he says here, then I'm going to now give it over in a clear way, but I think he got a little lost in giving over the details. But still, we're going to learn what we can from this. Lashon Reb Nassan Zan. Reb Nassan, the language, the words of Reb Nassan of blessed memory. Zot Torah shebesiman ze no shamati mipiv kadosh. This Torah in this lesson, I didn't hear directly from Rabbi Nachman's mouth. V'hu milashon chaverim kanam. This is from the Hasidim, as mentioned above, that they heard it from Rabbi Nachman. Ve'hame'anyen yir'eh be'inav, and the person who studies this lesson will see with their eyes. Shalashon migum gam is a little mixed up, or ma'od, a lot mixed up. V'chaser harbein, a lot is missing. V'gam ma shenichtav, and even what's written, hu shelo kaseder, it's given over in a disorderly way. V'al ken amalti levaer k'tzat, and so I said to myself, I'm going to try to clear things up a little bit. K'fi ma shehivanti me'dvarim elu hanichtavim kan v'hu. From what I understood from the lesson that we just studied, and this is what he's going to say. Yive'er al yedei yegiat Torah yechol lerapeh et nafsho mi'itrachakuta v'kein yive'er et sugei hayisurim. He's going to explain how toiling in learning Torah, even if you don't learn the Torah, just the effort in learning Torah, can heal a person's soul from the feeling of being distanced from Hashem. And so also, he's also going to bring the different types of afflictions. Ki tzarich kol adam lerapot nafsho shenitrachaka mechatav meHashem yitbarach. Everybody has to heal their soul that has been distanced from their transgressions from Hashem. And I just want to make a point here that a Christian missionary, if they come to you, so one of their arguments will be that everyone is born in sin. You're just born in sin. And the only way that you can be fixed is if you believe in their God. And so somebody could read this and they can say, here, it says right here, Rabbi Nachman, every person has to heal their soul because they were distanced from their sins from Hashem. But it doesn't say that they were born in sin. Everybody is born with a neshama Torah. That's what we believe as Jews, that everyone's born with a pure soul. Anything that happens from that point on, it's what they messed up. It's just like, you get a bank account with 10,000 shekels, that you spent it on things that you shouldn't have spent it on. That's your fault. But you got the account with that amount of money, and I'm speaking from experience. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm saying that this is what somebody sitting on the other side of the camera does sometimes. Although I have really good excuses. I don't spend it on nonsense. I have, Baruch Hashem, many mouths to spend it on. But many times there isn't enough, and I can look at the beginning of the month or even a few days before and say, I had this much money there and now it's not there. So that's essentially what he's saying, that everybody has to kind of get their act together from messing up whatever they messed up. V'lachen yesh lo yisurim, and that's why a person has afflictions, troubles and afflictions. V'afilo imeim rak yisurim shel ahava, in quotes, rak yisurim shel ahava, and even if they're just afflictions of love, hainu la'alota lamakom shorsha, that is, that you should elevate them to the place of their root. And how do you elevate them to the place of their root? By understanding that the troubles and afflictions are there to bring you closer to Hashem. Person has to elevate their souls to the attribute of wisdom, meaning that you need to use your brain in order to do this work. Which is the root and the soul of all, the root and the source of all souls. And a person reaches this by toiling and studying Torah, until a person merits to understand what they're learning. Because there are two types of judgments. Din shem tuma, the judgment that comes from our transgressions, din kadosh, and a holy judgment, et asher yehav Hashem yochiach. Whoever Hashem loves, Hashem rebukes. Sometimes we can feel like we want a little less love from Hashem, but Hashem is the one who's making the decision how much we need and how much we don't. If it was up to me, I wouldn't be ready for the first Rosh Hashanah ever. I'd never be ready for it. It's like, no, it's too big. But Hashem decides Rosh Hashanah comes, and Rosh Hashanah comes. And of course I'm going to be in shul, and we're going to have guests, and we're going to blow the shofar. And then I'm for sure not ready for Sukkot. But Sukkot comes, and I'm not ready for Simchat Torah. But Simchat Torah comes, and Hoshana Rabbah Lefnei Zeh before that, and this thing, even Chanukah. So I normally work from the afternoon until the night. It's my normal work day, because in the morning I learn, and then I prepare food for myself, and then I'm at work usually around 1 o'clock. When we light the Chanukiah at 5 o'clock, that means my work day is like 3 hours. Because by the time the family and everything is over, it's already 7 o'clock, I'm not going back to work. So, never ready for these things, but Hashem says, nope, I'm deciding. And Hashem decides also with the afflictions that He sends to us. And this is what afflictions of love are. Hem bechinat itrachakut Shehu atchalat itkarvut. It is the aspect of distancing, which is the beginning of coming close. Perush, meaning, אף שהייסורים נראים כאילו השם מרחיק את האדם מעבודתו ואינו חפץ בה, even though in the beginning it seems that when you have troubles and afflictions, it's as if Hashem is distancing you from coming close to Him, and He doesn't desire you. על ידי התבוננות מתברר כי הם התקרבות גדולה לעבודת Hashem. When a person stops and thinks about it, then they'll realize that it's actually a great way of coming closer to Hashem. כמו שאמרו חכמינו זיכרונם לברכה, as the sage of blessed memory said, כל המצדיק את עצמו מלמטה, anybody who justifies themselves from down below, or meaning wants to be righteous down below, מצדיקים עליו את הדין מלמעלה. Then up above they say, okay, you want to grow in coming close to Hashem, we're now going to have to give you a test. דהיינו שהאדם רוצה להצדיק את עצמו, להתקרב להשם יתברך, אזי מצדיקים עליו את הדין. When a person wants to be righteous and come close to Hashem, then they're stricter with the judgments upon that person. דהיינו שנמשכים עליו דינים וייסורים. That is, that a person it's drawn to the person troubles and afflictions. Now you can think of somebody who doesn't want to come close to Hashem. Shalom to Yael, and I said to Chaya before. Think of somebody who doesn't want to come close to Hashem, and they're suffering troubles and afflictions. So how does that make any sense? Because everybody's going to suffer troubles and afflictions. It's just that the troubles and afflictions you're suffering bring you closer to Hashem or not. And really all troubles and afflictions are to bring somebody closer to Hashem. So if you think about stories that I don't even have to be specific, it's just the general story. I drank, I smoked, I destroyed my life, I got my life together, and now I'm in great shape and everything is going fantastic in my life. That's like the general story arc. And there's inspirational speakers. Oh, if you knew me just a few years ago, you look at me now in my fancy suit and all the money and success I have, but I was homeless, sleeping in the streets. How did you turn your life around? I realized this isn't what I want with my life. I want to make a better life for myself. I first of all cleaned myself up. I got myself a job. They really liked me. They promoted me. One thing led to another, and here I am today. That is the process that we're talking about. The person being homeless is what brought them to being the success. Very rarely do you have people that are just like born into a wealthy family that are very successful. Their life is usually a disaster because, the reason is because they never had to work for anything. It's interesting to think of Jared Kushner. So he is a great success, and he was born into a very wealthy family. You know his story? You know I'm talking about Jared Kushner? Okay. This is a fascinating story. He was like, this smart little Jewish kid. He's tall. Okay, tall Jewish kid. And he's like 17 years old, and his father embezzled money, stole money, did something, got put into federal prison for a long time. I don't know, 10 years or something like that. And the whole family was like, wow, we thought we were rich, but we're bankrupt, and what a mess, all of our business stuff, and what are we supposed to do? And he said, okay, I'll take it over. And he turned it into a massive success, even 10 times more than his father ever made. And when his father finally got out of prison, the family was wealthier than ever. And why was that? Because he was challenged. Now, he probably said to himself, I just want to be a normal kid. I just want to go to college. I want to go to Harvard, and be with my fancy friends in Harvard, and smoke cigars and whatever they do in Harvard. But no, he was thrown into life, and he had to deal with it, and it made him into a great success. And then he happened to marry the president's daughter, who he didn't know at the time was going to be the president's daughter. Probably Trump thought he was going to be the president forever, even back then. And here he is making peace in the Middle East. And all of this because he went through this terrible time in his life that raised him up. So this is the story that Rabbi Nachman is trying to say. And he's saying, and it's not just a story, it's based on this idea that we learn from the Torah that Hashem sends us afflictions in order to bring us closer. So a person might look at this and they say, here, I tried to come close to Hashem and Hashem distanced me. No, when you try to come close to Hashem, Hashem is always going to push you away. If you make a decision, so like when I first started keeping Shabbos, when I was my first year in college, everything went wrong. I left a light on in the room and the light bulb went out. And all my friends are like, come on, let's go party, let's go out for dinner. And I said, no, I'm keeping Shabbos. Like, what's wrong with you? You're a freak, you're crazy. Oh, the pressure, everything. But I was determined to keep Shabbos. And the distancing is what brings you closer. So you think, the light bulb goes out and I wanted that light bulb so I could read on Shabbos. But I'm not going to turn on the lights, I'm not going to switch the light bulb. That is what brings you closer. So when you face the challenges, they bring you closer. Veda dinim v'yisarim nir'im ki hitrachakut. And these judgments and afflictions that we have, they seem like Hashem is distancing us. Ki'ilu otzim laharchik me'avodato et Hashem chas v'shalom, as if Hashem wants to distance us from Him, God forbid. Ube'emet zeh hitrachakut u'ikar hitkarvut. But the truth is, this distancing is really what brings us closer. Ki elu adinim vehitrachakut hem letovato. Because this judgment and this distancing is for a person's benefit. B'bchinat et asher yahav Hashem yuchiach. Those that Hashem loves, Hashem rebukes. Kadei sheyamod b'nisayon hazeh. And in order for a person to stand up to this test, v'yitkaber v'yitametz li'itkarev yoter, a person needs to make an effort to overcome it and to come closer to Hashem. Vayem b'makom acher ameniot hem b'shvil acheshik. And look in another place in the Likutey Moharan where he says that the obstacles are only in order to bring us closer to Hashem. V'od mevoram Hashem kameh v'kamod, and it's explained in also different places. And that's why it's called Din Kadosh. Yisurim shel Ahava, afflictions of love, are called Din Kadosh, a holy judgment. Rak shehu b'chinat mochim dekatnut. The only thing is that it comes about in a way that feels like we can only see our troubles and afflictions. They're coming from a small-minded consciousness. Umisha mikar achizat hadin. And that's why the judgment is so strong, kayadua, as it's known, v'lachen tzarich lematek oto, and so a person has to sweeten the judgment, u'lerapeh et hanefesh, as mentioned above, and to heal their soul, as mentioned above. So he goes here, he says the three types of judgment, which I'm going to skip because we've already gone over that. Avar tzarich kol adam, kol echad lirot lahamtik zeh hadin. But everybody has to make an effort to sweeten this judgment. How do you sweeten the judgment? You sweeten it by taking mochim lekatnut, a constricted consciousness. V'tzarich kol adam lelech mekatnut legatlut. And every person has to go from a constricted consciousness to an expanded consciousness. Letzet memochim dekatnut lemochim legatlut, to go from the smaller mindedness to the larger mindedness. And this is the example that I gave of the soldier who said, how can you be happy without legs? How can you not be happy with legs? That shift takes work, and that's what changes a person's perspective from a small-minded to a bigger. Charles Kushner, was in jail for 14 months. Okay, thank you for your Alice. She's my fact checker. And Baruch Hashem, what's the rest? Ivanka, that's the Hebrew name, Yael, chosen conversion. Okay, I can't read the rest of the comment because it's blocked by the phone, like it's just under the phone. But I'll read it afterwards because it's Yael's cultural additions are very important. And it's pretty much the only thing I ever see on Facebook. Once I liked one of her posts, that's it. That I only spend like 15 seconds on Facebook every day to see if anybody left a comment on the class, and I see Yael stuff. So I learned a lot about that. Jeff Bezos and the Queen of England and stuff like that. Really, in case I need it. You never know. You have to know how to answer an apikoros. Somebody might say something. V'al yedei ze yamtik et hadin. So this is how we sweeten the judgment. This is how we change what is an affliction into something that brings us closer to Hashem. By the way we look at it. Shu b'chinat Yitzchak. The judgment that's coming to us, the afflictions coming, is connected to Yitzchak. V'Yitzchak u'b'chinat din is connected to judgment. B'chinat Elokim, the name Hashem, k'mo shekatuv. Okay, so now he's getting into the details again. But really, the main thing that we had to know from this is that we have to have this b'chinat mochim degadlut, dahainu she'al yedei yediat Torah, b'havana, that is by learning Torah and by understanding it. And this is using our chokhmah, this is using our brain. Ki Torah nikreit or, because the Torah is called light. B'pchinat katuv v'Torah or, and as is written in Mishlei that it's a Torah of light, and that he's bringing other proofs to bring it along here as well. Ki haTorah hi b'chinat or shehi hefech achoshech, because the Torah is the aspect of light, which is the opposite of darkness. Shu b'chinat din kanal, which is judgment, is mentioned above. Ki al yedei yediyah b'Torah nimtak hadin kanal. By learning Torah, the judgment is sweetened, as mentioned above. Okay, so that's pretty much all we're going to learn from this. I think the lesson is pretty clear. He goes into all the details of the lesson here, everything that we went over, Hoshana Rabbah, Simchat Torah. And let's just read the last paragraph of this. Azai, shezocher adam lechokhma, when a person merits to have wisdom, azai nitkale kavodo yitbarach, then Hashem's light is revealed to them and to the world. V'zeu yikar tachlit shel kol avodot ha'adam. This is the ultimate purpose of all of a person's service in this world. Ki tachlit kol ha'avodot, because the ultimate purpose of all of our serving Hashem, shetzarich ha'adam le'avod borei yitbarach. A person has to serve Hashem, v'hu rak kadei sheyitgale kavodo shel Hashem yitbarach, and it's only in order to reveal Hashem's light in this world. Right? Hashem created a world full of atheism, full of darkness, full of Hashem not being revealed, and we reveal it by somebody looking and saying, how is it that you had that difficulty and you still have faith in Hashem? There's always the story of the people that survived the Holocaust. I don't know what's going to be with the people that survived being in Gaza, even though it's similar, for sure. There are people that came out of the Holocaust, staunch atheists, and there are people that came out of the Holocaust even more religious than before. Who's the Rebbe that founded the hospital here? You remember? Huh? What is it?
Sons Rebbe in Netanya.
The Sons Rebbe? Yeah, you have to look that up. My fact checker. Leonardo Hospital, I think it's called. Right? It was the Sons Rebbe? Okay, I think it was a different Rebbe, but I'm not sure. And whatever it was, the Rebbe, who we'll have to look up, since his name is slipping my mind right now, he had something like 10 children. They were all murdered in the Holocaust. And then he got, huh? That's it. Some,
say it really softly because it wasn't true.
If that's not exactly how it is, it's 90%. Klausenberger, something like that. And then he got remarried. I think he had another 10 kids. And he opened this hospital because he said the Nazis wanted to kill and I'm going to heal. And from what I remember, I don't know if it's still true till today, when I heard this from Reb Shalom, he said it was the only hospital in Israel that didn't have a strike. The doctors and nurses didn't strike. I don't know if it's true or not. But the point being that Hashem fills the world with darkness. But when a person says, I'm not going to embrace the darkness, I'm going to embrace the light, like the Klausenberger something Rabbi, then that is the whole point. That's how we reveal Hashem's light in the world. The soldier that I told you about that's missing his legs, the Rebbe, and us even in our little challenges, because whatever it is you're going through, if you're able to remain positive and have emunah, then people will look at you and they'll say, I know that you're suffering this thing and you're suffering that thing, and still you're happy. You're an inspiration for me. That's bringing Hashem's light into this world. Kamo shekatuv lichvodi barativ. Why did I create the world? In order for my light to be revealed. So I started this thought and then I interrupted myself. And what I wanted to say is that Hashem created a world full of darkness, but it's our job to essentially be the candles or the flashlights that bring light into the world. And wisdom reveals Hashem's light, and then he gives a text proof for that. And this is the meaning of the verse that we started with. Ruma al Hashemayim Elokim. Hashem raised himself above Shemayim. Shemayim is the aspect of Yaakov. Yaakov is Nefesh, is Elokim, is Din Kadosh, is Yisroim Shel Ahava. Meaning, where is Hashem found? Hashem is found above the troubles and afflictions that we go through. And when we use our wisdom, our chokhmah, then we fill the whole world on Azai Kol Haaretz, on Kol Haaretz Kivodecha. We fill the whole world with Hashem's light. Va'az nitgale kivodosh l'Hashem yitbarach kanal. Then Hashem's light is revealed into the world. Okay, so that's it. I don't have a story of Reb Zusha for Yael. Sorry, I don't know. I did actually see one on Shabbos, but that's a long one, and I tell short stories here. Okay, so we have a very short story here. I might have told this before. If I didn't tell it before, I looked at it before, and it was kind of a weird story. So here's the story that's given from the compiler of Shivchei Haban Shem Tov. Who is that? I don't know. Maybe it's an anonymous person. Shivchei Haban Shem Tov are teachings of the Baal Shem Tov that were compiled after the Baal Shem Tov passed away. And this person heard it from Toldot Yaakov Yosef Ponoi, who was one of the Baal Shem Tov's closest disciples and also the original successor of the Baal Shem Tov, and from Reb Gedalia of Linitz, who was another chassid of the Baal Shem Tov. And they both told it about this guy, Reb Yudel of, maybe you'll be able to pronounce this, Chidnov. Chidnov.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, Chidnov. That's it. Okay, so his father, Reb Yosef, so we have this Reb Yudel and his father, Reb Yosef. His father, Reb Yosef, was a Magid. They say, they're right here, a preacher. It was a Magid. He would go around from town to town, and the way it worked back in those days is basically people would be like, punch me in the face. And be like, why do you want me to punch you in the face? So I feel real. Give me a punch in the face. So the Jews in that generation, these are the 1700s, 1800s, they would like righteous Jews to come and say, you're bad. You all suck. You're the worst Jews ever. And they'd be like, oh, you're right. We need to be better. Today, somebody does that, they'd throw them out of the shul. But in those days, that was the generation. So this is what a Magid is. So Magid would go around.
Once or twice.
Magid would go around, and he would, rebuke people, and people like that. And this Reb Yehuda, the Baal Shem Tov, said that this Reb Yudel was a reincarnation of Shmuel HaNavi, Shmuel the prophet. And Reb Yudel would not take money from anyone. He wanted to work. And he worked as an ironsmith, meaning banging metal and turning it into stuff. And he was very strict about keeping kashrut and the Torah mitzvot. And one time he was traveling for business, for his iron work. And the sun started to set on Friday afternoon. And he goes to a kosher inn. And he says to the innkeeper, I want to stay here for Shabbos. And he looks at this Reb Yudel, and he sees he's a serious religious Jew. And he says, Rabbi, I keep kosher here, but I don't keep kosher on the level that you keep. You could eat fish, but we never have any fish here. So I suggest you continue further. There's an innkeeper who's very wealthy, and he always makes sure to have fish at his inn. So Reb Yudel says, okay, he starts walking, and there was a river. And the river, at that time of year, is normally very low. So people would just, wade across the river, walk across the river. And so he figured, okay, he's going to walk across the river to the other inn. And as he's walking, he sees a dog come running. And the dog jumps in the river and drowns in the middle. And he realizes, okay, this is too deep for him. He didn't know how to swim. So he's going to drown if he walks into the middle of the river. He turns around and he goes back to the original innkeeper. And the innkeeper says, what happened? He said, the river, obviously the water rose and there was a dog that drowned. And, if I have to, I won't eat anything for Shabbos, but I don't have any place to go. So he said, you know what? I'll go to the marketplace and maybe I'll find a fish for you. He goes and he finds this big pike. So I don't know how big a pike is, but on the screen we're going bigger, bigger, bigger. That's it. The hands are outside the screen. A big fish, okay? And the innkeeper is very happy. And he says to this Reb Yudel, you must be a very special Jew because I've been running this inn for decades and they never have fish in the market, ever. And here, not only do they have a fish, they have a huge fish and I bought it for you. So I'm happy to prepare it for you. And he prepares it for him and he eats the fish on Friday night. And when he goes to sleep, he has a dream. His father, Rabbi Yosef, who was the Maggid, who had passed away, he came to him in the dream. And he said to his son, Reb Yudel, you should know that the dog was an informant. So in the old days, maybe also today, there were informants from the government. That's why we say V'lamal Shinim in Shmona Esrei, that would inform on the Jewish community. And there was an informant that he knew about. And everywhere he went, this Reb Yosef, the Maggid, the father, he would pursue this informant and tell everyone to kick him out of town, and he made his life miserable. So he's coming to his son in the dream, and he says, the dog that drowned is the soul of the informant. And his tikkun, his fixing, was to save your life by jumping into the river and preventing you from drowning. And he says, but my soul was reincarnated in the fish. And what did I have to be put in a fish? Because I had no mercy on the informant, even though he deserved it. I had no mercy on him. So every bite that you eat it with the right kavana, knowing that you're elevating my soul. And you know that one of the minhagim is to have fish on Shabbos. There's this idea that the souls of tzaddikim end up in the fish that we eat on Shabbos. And that's why people are so careful to eat it, Suda Shlishit or Friday night, whenever it is. I once told a story that was in the footnotes in Likutey Moharan of a guy who said a quick l'chaim on whiskey. And Reb Levi Yitzhak Berdichev said, your father's soul was in that whiskey. And he didn't even say a bracha. That's what it was. He didn't say a bracha. And he said, what? I didn't know. He said, yeah, your father's soul was reincarnated into wheat, and the wheat was turned into whiskey, and then the whiskey sat for 15 years in a barrel. And then I poured this for you, and you didn't even say a bracha, and that was the whole purpose that I gave you the whiskey. So you never know. You never know with stuff like this, so just be careful. Have kavana with everything. Do the best you can with everything, but don't make yourself crazy either, because that'll do the opposite. And Be'ezrat Hashem, when we get to the world to come, we'll learn that we did a lot of things right, and one of them for sure is coming to this lesson. Everyone.